The Trifecta Challenge, deemed by UK courts of law as not suitable for children aged 0 to 3, is a term coined by Resident Evil challenge runners, where mentally ill gamers would take the 3 hardest achievements in Resident Evil games and completing a full playthrough on the hardest difficulty, aiming for the 3 achievements at the same time. The reason I'm talking about this is due to an epiphany I had lately. I love Resident Evil, but I'm a Sonic creator, so why don't I just take these Resident Evil challenges and do it in a Sonic game? No such achievements or difficulties exist in any Sonic game, but we can make it work. Today's challenge will be very similar to the achievements in Resident Evil 4, Minimalist, Frugalist, and Silent Stranger. I'm very experienced in Resident Evil 4, so this should be no problem. The way I will convert this to Unleashed is by banning stat upgrades as if we can't speak to the merchant, not collecting any of Sonic's skill upgrades to use the minimal moveset, and enabling a one-hit KO mod, matching it to Sonic Frontier's extreme difficulty. Checkpoints are still allowed. So, can we beat Sonic Unleashed's hardest challenge, or will we descend into complete collapse? The game starts being not that different. Apotos Day Act 1 is literally the tutorial stage before anything is unlocked at all, and if you're getting damaged here, something is off. I'm not throwing any rank requirements into this challenge because, well, I'm not that wrong in the head, so we can move straight on, grab a few medals in the hub world, and get onto Act 2. That's another thing, medals. A core component of Sonic Unleashed progression that didn't return in any form until Frontiers. These medals are crucial to this challenge, as we will likely be skipping some when it comes to glitches and skips later on down the line. For anyone who has yet to play Unleashed, or just doesn't have access to it, you need 120 Sun medals and 80 Moon medals to finish a casual playthrough. While I didn't get them all on my first try grabbing them, medals in Apotos are really easy. Some, like this one on the balcony, are really out of your way, but most can be found on the main path, or with a tiny bit of backtracking. Instead of Air Boost, Sonic will instead have this Air Dash like he does in Generations. I always miss this once I unlock Air Boost, and I know there's mods that fix it, but I prefer to play the way God intended. Besides, Unleashed gameplay is peak. You can use the Air Dash to build insane speed on some rails as well, so this will likely go to use later on. Now, as the Werehog, the gameplay will just feel very minimal, but there's a few things to be aware of. You can end moves early by hitting the shield button, allowing you to restart a combo before it actually finishes. This is great for breaking walls and gates, because you don't have to spend so much time readying back up. Jumping at the right time when grabbing a bar will slingshot Werehog up higher than a normal jump, with some more freedom of movement too. This can be used on some enemies too, and I decided to use it to skip the wave of little guys, for 2 reasons. One being that when you reach the next room, the trigger to spawn in the enemies is missed, so they aren't there. And 2, I was fucking lazy. The bar jump is insanely useful at the end since the slow balance bar is replaced by big jumps. Though going through the stage thinking who dies in Apotos Night in 2026, I did have to reload a checkpoint in the first 15 minutes of footage. Combining Unleash with the shield cancel, you can pretty easily just mash Y to plow through most enemies, which is what we will do at the end. Not successfully on attempt 1, or attempt 2, but we got there. Next, we board the tornado, and then have a clean flight all the way to Spagonia without any interruptions, which just means that Mazuri Night is up next. There's an easy 2 Sun medals to snatch at the opening, and thankfully you don't actually have to kill anything in the first room. Unlike the second room, without a couple of combat upgrades, you won't have the moves to be able to skip the crank or the combat encounter, but it really wasn't too hard. The enemies weren't equipped for UK travel and had no weapons to hand. In the next room though, they came prepared, and can dash pretty far to give you a beating. Learned that one the hard way. Medal cleanup in this room is nice too. Throw the wee guy at the target, drop, get the medal, bar jump back up, get the medal at the top of the platform, and then the one in the corner. Sorted. I think the room with the 2 cranks was the worst. Sure, the robots didn't respawn unlike the last room, but the stupid plants at the side can throw you off if they aren't taken care of first. Then this happened. No! Well, tidying up the last room by properly shield cancelling and using Unleash, we're done. There's an extra Moon and Sun medal to grab in the hub world that's turbo easy, by the way, so just grab these in any run since they don't take you out your way too much. Mazuri Day is still a pretty fun stage even without the upgrades, but again, this is standard. As long as you know Sonic's moveset well enough, not having the upgrades won't hold you back very much. Not yet, anyway. However, I had not considered how much damage I take in normal Unleashed playthroughs because Egg Beetle was the toughest challenge yet. It won't hold the title for long either. I was trying to be as careful as possible after sacrificing myself to get the medals. My strategy was to only boost whenever it would go for a close quarter attack, and boost combined with quick step slide to go for multiple hits when he's down. This did enough damage to avoid the 2D part, and that would have struck fear into me if I reached that point. Now for this next part, I really tried to do this with my own knowledge as best I could, but it turned out to be way more trouble than it's worth. In Holoska Day, this is when the Stomp upgrade first becomes available, which throws us at our first major roadblock in the challenge. We cannot do something as simple as hitting a switch to open the door, so we need a workaround. I knew the strategy was to go over the wall because we couldn't go around it and we couldn't go through it. or under it for that matter. Using the platform up on the right of the gate wasn't providing consistent enough results for me, so I used it to get onto the left to create some other stupidly convoluted strategy for a mess that I created completely on my own. I spent like a solid 15 minutes just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what would stick for more than just a second without falling, but then I remembered that low percent is an unofficial category for Sonic Unleashed, so I consulted a speedrun. Big shout out to the GOAT of Unleashed, Joshua Salkeld, because without the help from him and the Unleashed speedrunning Discord, I would be totally lost. It still took me a few tries to get right, but you can actually target the enemy at the top right from the switch, which is how I managed to get to the right position in one fell swoop. But then things get mad difficult. There is a very small, and I mean very small, but steep edge you can boost off of to gain a lot of height, but only if you input correctly. Basically, if you're as close to the edge as you can be, boost off using neutral stick until you leave the ground and then instantly veer right, you theoretically should gain enough height to get over the wall. I was here for like half an hour total, maybe more, clapping some cheeks in the background when I succeeded. But believe me, it gets worse from here. The first switch on Cool Edge 1, I didn't even bother to try on my own, because I wouldn't have known where to start. The strategy here is some Frontiers trick launch bullshit. You have to stay at the edge above the spring, and then boost at a very specific angle to go above the door. Again. At one point I thought I had it when I clipped out of bounds, but there was nowhere to clip back in, and stages don't give you free camera control the same way hub worlds do. Well, I succeeded, but I don't think this is supposed to be happening right now. Right, so you absolutely want to make sure you get the bobsled, otherwise the rest of this segment might be impossible. I don't know, I was too scared to try since damage wasn't allowed, but I now feel the same joy reaching a checkpoint as I do finding a typewriter in Resident Evil games. So the bobsled part is done. How do we get past the second switch? Well, not like this, that's for sure. There is a lot of footage here trying to get past the second switch. When I tell you I was here for over an hour on the first day of recording, I am not lying. And looking back, I wish I was just working on my backlog. Let's just take a quick look at how long this took. I think we'll come back to this later. For now, let's head back to Spagonia and start beating Rooftop Run, which actually ended up being ever so slightly more difficult than I thought. I was going to attempt some enemy trigger skips, but you don't get the moves for it, unfortunately. It's not in the base moveset. Because one hit KO is a constant looming threat, I actually found myself using the stage hazards for once. Ironic, because these explosive boxes only need to be in range a tiny bit for it to remove a life instead of 1 HP. I don't even have any of those to begin with. The next scary room was the introduction to the gunner robots, which I did not spawn in right away when I typically would. Not hard to defeat on their own, but I was not prepared to feel like I was being gunned down by a rival drug cartel in central Spain. I don't even think they have those there. Getting through the alley was fine too. There's a few medals worth grabbing in there, and then we have the first mandatory fat guy to kill. Oh, there it is. Thankfully, most of the clock tower relies on the bar jump, so reaching the top is really quick and easy, even without any moveset upgrades in play. Oh, there it is again. I guess I'll just go fuck myself then. Forgetting that a blocking enemy can still be QTE'd, I ended up failing frame 1 for button mashing, and then got grazed by just the tip of the spin attack on the next attempt. Despite these guys dying in 4 hits, that was actually the most I died in a single Werehog combat section so far. Died for the Apotos mini-boss. God, that is pathetic. Next up is the harassment encounter, and then our only avenue for progression. Back to Holoska, which was a complete fucking embarrassment because I couldn't even do the Stomp Shoe skip itself, never mind the skips in the actual level. Tried this again for about 10 minutes, to no avail, so I decided to sleep on it, and see what Josh and the Unleashed speedrunning community had for me when I woke up. With a fresh mindset ready to continue, the advice I was given confirms the worst. We are going to have to learn M speed. Which, I mean, fair enough, some major parts of the stages will need to be skipped, but I did spend a solid hour trying to get past the gate in the hub world again. You don't want to see all that. I got better at doing the first switch skip. It honestly is not that hard, very inconsistent, but less input heavy than the others. And then, we're back here. I was given 2 options. You can either go round the left of the tunnel, which requires a lot of M speed, or you can try what I was doing the day before, and I'll tell you now, it's way easier to go right. There's collision that stops you bypassing the tunnel, but it isn't very high. If you use a little bit of M speed from the out of bounds part, you can just clip over that collision and you can boost over. Now after reaching the loop just before the bobsled, it's not even that difficult to pull off with a bit of practice, but we run into a major problem. The camera doesn't change when you enter the bobsled, so how we're going to get through this without damage is another story. On stream, you won't see this in the raw footage because of the way I record. I got the Xbox back out so I could have a few practices at the segment with a normal camera. I taught myself what inputs to pull off, and then, with a horrific amount of attempts, what did the polar bears do, man? This is all me.
Yo, chat. Can you send me a friend request on Discord if you haven't? It's for a experiment soon. Trust.
Chat, don't trust them.
If you want more info, you can DM me asking if you want more info and I will explain it to you. However, I will only explain it to you, the people who DM'd. And don't go yapping outside. Because
I did it! I did
hurt.
it! Oh my god, I did it! Now I can experience what it's like to actually progress in a video game. Dragon Road, not difficult. 2 combat encounters are mandatory, the rest you can skip through various means. Admittedly, I did try and do the skip to stop the obstacles on the road spawning, but then there was some invisible collision that would only disappear if we spawned the obstacles. Other than the minor complication that comes with clearing the final area, pretty easy stage. And then Dark Gaia Phoenix was just a case of knowing the positioning and where and when to throw the water jugs at the Phoenix. Not a whole lot to talk about here. So next up was reaching Dragon Road Day, without our next major upgrade. Now normally you would have done Rooftop Run by this point, maybe, I can't remember. So if you had the wall jump, getting over there would be really easy. So we need to find another point to use. Luckily, there's a way you can reach the T in the hub world, and from there you can boost jump into an air dash through the rainbow rings. And you win. Now Dragon Road Day is hardly a difficult stage without the upgrades, but it can be tough when going for damageless. Honestly, the toughest part was the chase sequence at the end, but between now and the start, there's little use for the skills you should have at this point, and it didn't make the medals any more difficult to retrieve. The chase part did take a few tries though. When going for damageless along with no stat upgrades, your boost gauge won't last long at all. Quick Step Slide doesn't increase your speed all too much either, and the whole sequence is very random. Well, with that out the way, let's move on to the next stage where the moveset is genuinely important. Back to Spagonia. Luckily I figured this out all on my own, starting with making it to the rail without wall jump first try, then just clipping the wrong way when I reached the ring. Now I later discovered that there's collision completely in the way of the rails before you have the wall jump, but that didn't stop me. I tried using the hourglass to jump straight to the spring, where the collision stopped me getting up. Wow, who saw that coming? Led to trying to use the stomp button to jump to the spring. Again, nothing. But somehow, you can jump up on the lamppost, jump again, aim at the spring, and attack it, landing you right where you need to be. And then the challenge fell short once again. There was a mandatory wall jump with no clear way to bypass it, and we couldn't get up. I tried various strategies for over half an hour before finishing up because this just wasn't going anywhere. Decided to sleep on it and just go right back in the next day. So on to day 3, we have 2 options, both of which I tried for a really long time. However, today we are equipped with 2 tools that will help us greatly. The first being an input display. There's an input display skin created specifically for Unleashed speedrunning that top runners use, which mark out the locations in the controller zone for M speed and D speed to work. You can see the input display on my stream footage, which you can find below if you're curious to see the complete segmented run. The other is enabling the collision, event, and kill planes in the mod loader to see exactly what we can run on and exactly what would kill us. I didn't enable these right away and tried as best I could, and when I did first enable them, I didn't do it right. To give you the short version of what was a long session of attempts, I tried the skip before the 2D section, which I just couldn't seem to get right. There's an invisible wall at the big turn, but it doesn't go as high as you think, so it is very possible to use M-Speed to get over it. I succeeded a few times, then I had no idea where I was going after that. Closest I've gotten. However, after an hour of this going nowhere, we decided to give the other skip a go, which uses the first big open turn to cross the kill plane and fly out of bounds all the way to the bottom of the tower. It requires very precise inputs to be able to manage right, since when you jump off the rail, your direction is about 80 degrees out from your target. Surprisingly enough, I found this to be way easier. The skip from before seemed to be really The skip from before seemed to really inconsistently read the inputs and provide varied results. Whereas with this skip looking a lot more difficult, I found the results to be very consistent after reaching over the kill plane. In around 10 minutes of repeating this attempt, we pulled this off. Let's go! Oh my god! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Now obviously this was done with the event planes enabled, so to ensure authenticity on this run, I spent the worst part of an hour recreating this without the kill planes, and was successful after an amount of attempts that I'm too embarrassed to admit, if I'm honest. I could count them, but that would take the worst part of an hour again, and I'm not really about that. I got so excited I told Josh, and apparently I was baited into the more difficult skip. Well, isn't that just great? Now, out of every combat encounter so far, I think Egg Devil Ray might actually be the hardest of the bunch. Trying to beat Devil Ray damageless without stat upgrades is just hell on earth. I knew this was going to be awful, so I opted to aim for all the medals first, and then take the fight seriously after that. The worst part of the Devil Ray is definitely the 2D parts. However, looking back at the footage, I am genuinely wondering why I played this in the way I did, because as soon as there's an opening, you can just boost right up to the boss and hit it that way. Like Egg Beetle, you can actually quick step slide to hit Devil Ray with a second boost, but it's situational if you're going damageless, because sometimes it will just decide to throw the shield back up with no warning. If you get lucky and there's no shield, it's a good bit of extra damage. This took a surprising amount of retries. At one point I had it literally one hit from death before taking damage myself, but after locking in, did a clean 3-hit finisher to finally move on and experience, yet again, a different part of the game. Which I'm technically not going to talk about just now, because I learned while editing this that the one-hit KO mod was actually reducing enemy HP in the night stages, so going forward I had to just improvise and accept death whenever I took damage. Look, call me Snackpigeon with 2 R's, but I was not ready to accept that I had done this up until now. I mean, why do you think all the previous night stages had a test footage watermark on them? Yeah, they didn't. I'm just an idiot. So, moving on to day 4, I replayed all the night stages and bosses I had done up until now, which comprised of Windmill Isle, Savannah Citadel, Rooftop Run, Dragon Road, Dark Gaia Phoenix, and now Cool Edge. You don't really have to do much at the start, because you can just take the little fire dude and burn the first lot of enemies, but the second one starts to get difficult. Icy terrain, with grunts a tier up from the weaker ones, I could simply just knock them down and throw them off, but I just had to be difficult. But the gang after that can just be skipped. Run straight to the lever, then go back and hit the button, you're through. In my head, the enemies in the room with the circle lever are really annoying to defeat, so I tried my best to just avoid them and go straight for the switch. Simply does not work. After about, over 5 deaths, I had to just cave and kill them. It's like an Apotos level encounter anyway, and wasn't hard to take out at all. I'm just a drama queen, honestly. Aside from the ice pillar, the rest of the stage was pretty okay. Enough circling around the pillar kept me safe from damage, and then the last major part of the stage is the end. Because you can burn the grunts before the slide, and then either throw off most of the robots at the last door, or smack them against each other. The final encounter is actually just fine for the same reasons just mentioned. You can bitch out of it and throw the enemies off the map, or you can use the clever positioning to Hulk smash the enemies together, and then use Unleash for a quick cleanup. Surprisingly, on this attempt, I did the final room first try, but then I died in the attempt. I was accidentally cheating. How about that? However, oh man, Dark Moray led to many crash outs, because its attack pattern and area of effect, not just from the main one, but from the little Morays as well, are just so unpredictable. Case in point, this. The tech ended up being to take out its head spot first, which should always be your tech to be honest, but also to ensure you crack open the ice on every throwable before doing literally anything to anyone. When you go back to attack the second time, make sure it goes for the slam attack, and then there's a very specific spot you can attack using the pure Y combo that hits both the remaining spots. Now this will likely result in the bottom one breaking first, but you'll have done enough damage for it to not matter which one does break, since either of those 2 spots can be broken without having to bait out an attack, unlike the head. After a little too long, we finally broke the eel. Reaching Arid Sands without the shoe upgrade is probably the easiest. You just have to take out the turbine guys to not throw off your targeting, climb the wall on the right, and then air dash into the rainbow ring. And then thankfully, Arid Sands only has one part to skip, and it's the wall jump right before the lightspeed dash. The setup for this is way more convoluted than you could ever imagine. So, reach the first checkpoint and then use the stalled slope to jump up on the roofs here. And then like Holoska, this teensy tiny minuscule little bit of collision is somehow enough to skip this invisible wall, and you need to move left enough to skip the trigger into 2D. But wait, there's more. There is unfortunately a solid wall before the turn towards the wall jump, and the camera would not cooperate with me while I was 3D and 2D. I thought following the path as normal would work, but it simply does not. Even trying to get through these hoops, if I was successful it wouldn't work because of how 3D and 2D works. What I ended up doing was using the spring into the launcher, going up, and then boost jumping over to the other end of the loop. Even then this took a few tries, but once you make it, you can just walk around the wall jump into the next section. And after that, you can do the rest of the stage as normal. Apart from when I got pancaked at the falling pillars, I tried doing that weird 3D and 2D thing again thinking it was 100% necessary, but it isn't. You don't need Stomp to finish the stage, it's just nice to have because without it, the rest of the stage is just this. The raising pillars can be skipped without glitches if you jump through the hoop after the last loop and just air dash as late as you can afford to. Then the rest of the stage is easy. Just don't jump on the ball, and it's all gravy. But next up is Empire City. Not a horrendous stage on its own, but when you have no mobility skills and no power upgrades, To say the stage is not fun is an understatement. Raising our cortisol levels beyond tangible measurements, I went through the platforming section, even jumping to speed it up, which is just the riskiest shit to do in this stage. A couple of deaths later, we were 2 sun medals up and closer to our goal. Having forgotten what it's like to fight a titan since there hasn't been one since Apotos, the scaling by this point was out of control, so my attacks were doing next to nothing. Like my younger cousin spamming the same move in Super Smash Bros, all the titan wanted to do was the slam attack. But don't worry, I bring solutions. With my 1000 plus hours in Resident Evil 2, I had a jobless amount of experience manipulating bosses, and this translated pretty well into taking out the Titan. Yes, I took the bitch way out, get him to half HP, and then obliterate him with pause buffering, aka Ada dropping the rocket launcher for me to deliver the finishing blow. I've never been more stressed out trying to get a sun medal in my life. I feel like I was auto-targeting the enemies, which was throwing me off. I had to drop off because of damage anyway, and got it first try with no enemies around. But like the relentless X, who just can't get enough of you, the Titan was back. By some miracle, we actually got rid of this guy first try, and Empire City was done. Jungle Joyride was up next. Didn't really say that right. Jungle Joyride was up next. Nothing major in this hub world, probably the most boring out of them all to be honest. But the stage, that's a different story. Like the one class you had in school that you just locked in for, thinking it was really hard but actually really fucking easy, the first combat encounter you can skip easily just by gunning it. But my ass thought fighting the second encounter was the way to go. Like, is he stupid? I decided to just gun this one too. I grabbed the 2 sun medals in the area and I really enjoy this stage for how easy the medals are. But then, even without an extra move, I just decided to see if this would work. Let's try it. Ain't no fucking way. Now, a mid-stage boss usually isn't a problem, but the health on these things now is just offensive. Thankfully, this fat thing is a complete idiot, and if they go for a melee attack after bringing new life into the world, they all just get wasted. There is definitely a real-world animal that does this. The same strategy applies. Get it to the grab threshold and pause buffer through the quick time events to get them perfect. Then the next part is fine. Normally you can XXA over the rocks to hit the switch early, but you can also just grab the red gem and gun it for the keyhole. So long as you stick to one side, you'll slip past everything in your way. Then we're faced with not just one major threat, but 2. The Titan and the cameraman. That sounds like a really shit movie, I'd probably still watch it though. Literally the easiest thing ever, it's just a battle of endurance. But since Empire City has a fixed camera, it's so much easier to dodge. The cameraman likes to focus on the Titan, so sometimes going one way actually just makes you go another and you just get smacked.
That's quite big.
I did also try to just skip the fight altogether, but the wall is too thick. You're not clipping through here. I had to restart the stage a few times, not even to do with the cameraman, but more to do with the bullshit hitboxes from this thing. But eventually, with enough endurance, we made it, and got 5 subs from it. Thanks, Rox. Remember what it's like to be young and carefree, excited for the road ahead with 0 responsibility? I say that like I'm Unk, but like that's how I felt going into Empire City Day. You know, nothing major in this stage, right? We can just blitz through it, take the rails, quick time event, slide, hit the rails, drift. This stage is a lot of fun. Until we hit the fucking wall jump part, which I completely forgot existed. Admittedly, I didn't remember the top route needing so many steps to get up, and without the stomp, that's out the question. There wasn't really much indication on how I was going to get past here since a boost didn't result in nearly enough height to get up top. Nothing did. The only way was through this glass, and that wasn't happening no matter what. So it was time to take matters into my own hands. Most wall jump issues are fixed by just going 3D into 2D, but this one was a little more complicated than just jumping over, since anything outside the standard 2D plane didn't have any collision. So, womp. What we needed was to skip the trigger for 2D, while still landing on the standard plane. A tiny bit of M-speed would clear most of the gap, and then an air dash would close the distance, which was surprisingly consistent compared to earlier strats. So even though I 100% knew this wouldn't work, I tried it anyway, and still believed in the top route, so I went round the glass, and to the surprise of no one, didn't break through it. You no! I'm soft-locked! And Josh was just sitting there for God knows how long watching me suffer, based to be honest, and I was soft-locked. But the loop launch proved at least something. With good inputs, reaching the rainbow hoops could skip the wall jump, but with the camera angle swaps, the results proved to be very unsatisfactory, and just kept leaving me with the same issues I started with. I was strategically not taking the checkpoint in the 2D part because there was a life available right after the previous checkpoint, and the skip wasn't that hard to pull off, so that's why you basically never see my life count go down. All this to skip one fucking wall jump part. I guess it's not as crazy as Rooftop Run, but has more options to skip than before. So what I found out was... So you're telling me I can just go down here and there's collision? Fuck me, there's collision. Right, okay. What do I do with this ball knowledge? But I still had no idea what I could and could not stand on. And when you find out how I actually did this, not only will I be kicking myself, but you'll probably want to kick me too. No M speed needed for this, you literally just boost and short hop slightly to the right to avoid a kill plane, then air dash back onto the buildings. That's literally it. Not even difficult. 3 tries. I would 100% miss the dash ramp if I gunned the rest of this segment, so I played safe. No option for that here though. The big guy wasn't the worst, but for the 3 rocket dudes, I decided to stop boosting and play safe, luckily making it through damageless first try. Then the rest of the stage was free. Apart from this line of rings. I could take any other route, but I was determined. And then we're done. It only took 19 minutes, finished up the sun medals in the hub world, and now we have every medal we need for the rest of the run. Okay, so in Arid Sands Night, you basically just have to do 2 combat encounters, since even without additional moves, you can actually still just skip it. How did I get to this conclusion? Asks you, the viewer. Was this ball knowledge something I just developed in the hellhole I traversed through so far? No. I wasted a fair chunk of time trying to get past the combat encounters at the start of the stage, realizing the enemies are far too strong. And if Arid Sands was this bad, then I can absolutely wait for Eggmanland. Even the Wizard and the Wasps is yet another encounter you didn't need to partake in. Don't try this without killing the enemies first though. Give yourselves peace and just kill them. Then try and skip the game. From suffering with the enemies for such a long time, I was told that there's an Unleash orb to the right of the checkpoint, so I used that to clear out the enemies each time I reset. I found it most consistent to go on the left of the gate and clip through that wall. If you get a fixed camera cutscene to show the rest of the area, you probably did it right, but you can still just die from it if you got it wrong. Now you'll skip a trigger that enables the stage hazards, so you can just run through, but this also skips the checkpoint trigger, so you will respawn before the door if you mess this up. Yes, I took damage a number of times, quite frankly I was just upset after a while. Not mad. Just upset. 3 wizards alongside this titan with what seemed to be even more scaled health in Empire City at least, probably in line with Adabat. You already know I wasn't in for a good time. I could write this off as a case of, oh, but I kept trying and got it, and instead talk about some overconvoluted strategy to beat this too. But realistically, this was probably going to be the hardest encounter in the game. And really, it was just a case of trying until I got it. But some things to note. When there's only 1 wizard left, you can use a smackdown on it to get a pretty decent whack of damage on the titan. I wouldn't risk this if the other wizards are alive. The other option is just focusing on the wizards to get down to just the titan, but you have to be aware of the titan's moves while whittling down the wizards. The titan can also damage the wizards, but I wouldn't rely on that. My eventual strategy was to abuse Unleash to not need to worry about taking damage and rushing in on the titan. The wizards would give a lot of Unleash points, so I went for them when I ran out, then continued. Rushed the quick time event, now we just have Dark Guardian before the final act. And you don't really need to fight the Dark Guardian at all. The gates are actually more of a threat than the boss itself. But what to do is knock down the Guardian and push all the boxes to the back so you can throw them all in at once. Then finish the fight with just 1 QTE. Jungle Joyride, for being an endgame stage, doesn't actually rely on Sonic's abilities. Much. Not much. The first major trick to know is the door with the switch, but it's not that hard to avoid. You can simply just M-speed over it. It's a lot easier than it looks. But then it's all shits and giggles until someone giggles and shits out a wall jump segment blocked by a fucking stomp switch, the biggest flex the game has pulled so far. Turns out, there's weirdly shaped collision on the little idle thingy to get on an invisible floor above the previous area, and then you theoretically, and I mean theoretically, can make it all the way to the spring. I say theoretically because I only saw Josh do it, I had to improvise. So I just a quick boost jump into M-speed and managed to just reach the rail to finish the stage that way. And then Egg Lancer, just a generally difficult boss but not held back by lack of abilities. The damageless part is pretty tough, but get your hits in at the right time and you can easily clear the HP in 2 arena cycles. Now we hop on a direct flight to Eggmanland. Clean journey and no trouble at all. So I progressed to Eggmanland as best I could, failing the challenge literally twice before the first 5 seconds passed, and it was just a bit odd trying to get through without air boosting and stomping. Taking the fast route is always best. Never go any other way because it's just inconvenient, especially with this moveset. Then we get to the Werehog section. Like in Arid Sands, there's very few combat encounters that matter, and this isn't one of them. Look, let's just say I spent a long time on this project before the government caught me and confiscated it, so I had to find another way to get to my goal. Which certainly wasn't going to be the normal route, since reaching the first 2D part just locks you behind the jump wall, yet again. And surely you know by now how we avoid wall jumping, right? Okay, so most of day 5 was theory crafting how I was going to get past this part. I tried like a lot of shit, and made next to no progress in the 3.5 hours I was here. The most consistent strat I was successful with was reaching the first vantage, but this was only after using the event planes again. I took some time to have a bit of a sniff around and see where I could stand and where the walls were. The drops weren't even killing me at any point, but as you can imagine, there was a lot of soft locking because I ended up in parts where the game doesn't intend for you to be. And as a result of how many times this happened, I actually made a net gain on lives. Knowing I'd eventually manage this, I got confident with my life count. From this first vantage point, you have to aim for some terrain around 3 strip lights and continue your jump from there, maintaining the speed you gained from your first use of M-Speed. There's just one problem. M-Speed basically never works here. The rest of day 5 was just attempting to jump over and over again. I did actually get very close, but still so far. It was just inconsistent. There was something I was missing that I just could not put my finger on. I had a crazy bad night of sleep trying to figure out what I was missing, and then it hit me. I took a quick look at Josh's inputs and then I realised why it wasn't working. I didn't notice the slide button doing a whole lot, but what I did notice was that going right triggered the M-Speed to work. And on day 6, hopefully the final day, we got the jump second try. Holy shit, second try. And I let the excitement get to me. Basically jump on the rail to land in the Ferris wheel, then jump over to the highest point just to the right. Then facing the next door, angling slightly left to land at these strip lights, aiming right to take off with M-Speed, and do the same thing from the strip lights. You're aiming for the bobsled section after the first indoor 2D part, since you can't wall jump. But during the werehog section, I noticed a horrible truth. All the lives I built up the day prior were gone. Reduced to atoms. Whatever. It's pointless anyway, and I'll show you why. Because after we finish the werehog section, guess what? We're fucked again. You can do most of this 2D section okay, but when you get to part 2, you need to wall jump. Simply can't be done. So do we need to M-Speed over this whole thing again? Well, no, it's a little less complicated than that. There's a 3D in 2D trick that speedrunners use to bypass this part as well, and it's really stupid, especially for my first time attempting this. Basically, if you switch to Sonic and then miss the spring and jump to the dashpad yourself, it won't hit the trigger to change to 2D, but you also won't be locked into automation, so if you think you can do nothing, you'll just die. You need to angle your stick forward a bit once you reach the vertical part, and then you can fly straight up and miss all the 2D parts. Oh fuck. Oh my god. Take part of the section as normal, and then when you're at the checkpoint, just jump round. Once you pull it off, it's pretty straightforward from there, but excluding resets, this took me about 30 tries to get right. The next 2D part after the QTE is more than doable. It's just scary, but I have to say I much prefer having to do this without the air boost. Then the skydiving part. I just had to not dive, and glide for most of it, slipping through all the lasers Ada Wong style. Now of course you can't bypass the next werehog part without wall jump, but it isn't really hard. Hit the button, grab the platform, then go for the bar on your right, immediately change direction, then avoid the spiky balls to get to the checkpoint. Enemies will spawn in before the pipe slide, but as long as you can flip the lever quick enough, they won't be an issue. And in the pipe slide, I was terrified, which was quickly set aside because the obstacles in here don't cause any damage. Thank God, because this would have been Reset City if true. The fan room was just boring. Without aerial moves, you can hit about 2 flying dudes at a time, and you can't even knock them down. You just have to jump up, hit them, avoid the fan on the way down, repeat. While this was still quicker to finish than Prince Andrew's ex-wife, it still took fucking ages. Then, in the next part... Actually, hang on. I don't want to risk this because... Josh, is that jump possible without the needle attack? I just have a feeling it's not. Time to find out. I know, but that's a waste of a fucking life. Oh well, fuck me then, holy shit. There's another circle room with a lever before the final section, which, before you ask, yes, was torture. Thankfully the wizard in the first room doesn't do any healing, but is a ranged attacker. Overall, the first room is just stressful over anything else, because when you break it down, it isn't really the worst thing ever. There's a claw power up on the right that you can gun it to after the unleashed orb behind the door, and it can whittle down the HP of the Titan really quickly. The more the Titan jumps, the more time the enemies will be spent downed, and it makes it really easy to focus on the big guy only. But then we get to the next room.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
And guess what? There's no checkpoint. Gotta get the big guy again. Type of mistake you make once and then never again. After getting bodied a few times in the first room, I retried and got it in my first go. Then it was back to double Titans. They damage each other, and everything around them. With double the frequency of attacks, it was actually a tactical advantage to let them kill the wizards in the room with them, because the healing wizard won't heal itself. But also, being far enough away from the wizards won't aggro them, so you could just actually freely attack them if the wizard is down, but you'd need to be fast enough before the wizard can heal them back up. With the wizards temporarily out of commission, it was time to aim straight for these grundle scrunchers in the middle. I managed to blast one of them out the way really fast, and then while the other one bitch slapped the wizards away, it was time to strike. And absolutely obliterating the final titan of the game, it was time for another gruesome challenge. So at its core, Egg Dragoon isn't that hard. Like, you're never going to be at risk of major death at any point, but one attack I could never avoid avoid was the bullet flurry, especially in the core when the arena is smaller, less room to dodge. What I did find though was that you can stop him from attacking altogether by mashing the Y attack as he's circling the arena. I managed to bypass all but the first attack in the first phase and made it to the QTE in one go. I wanted to try again in the core, but the ice attack plus the enemies makes it kind of difficult to pull off at first, and then his next attack is the machine gun, which we can't avoid. But then, like Jungle Joyride Night, I was just overthinking the whole thing, because how much can the shield absorb? Practically all of it. Okay, good to know. Shield is so weak without any stat upgrades that I didn't even think about it, and I've hardly used it, if at all, during this run. I did not think it would be the Werehog's saving grace, but here we are. Knowing this, it was a much cleaner fight. I just had to not be an idiot, which to be honest was looking pretty likely at this point. So Dark Gaia has one major issue. The laser is completely unavoidable and will damage you 100% of the time. Not even task bots can avoid it consistently. But thankfully, the game is called Sonic Unleashed, not Teto Unleashed. So we settled that damage from the laser wouldn't count, but the rocks would count. I think you can all agree with me that force damage is bad game design anyway, and this fight is probably the one part in the whole game where the design is bad. The real challenge lies in Sonic segments anyway. With such little time to reach Dark Gaia, not having Stomp alone is what makes this so hard. With small obstacles right before having to slide, it would be really nice to just stomp that. But even without damage, the first part was the least of our worries. The second part can actually just straight up not work, but the jump pads is the best route anyway, so long as it works, which luckily it did. Sweeping through, no damage on the first go. The final one just had a tentacle I always forget about, and I took my first hit of the fight here. Then again at the broken pathways because my jump angle was off, but Dark Gaia ensured I wasn't getting up anyway and whacked me off. On attempt 3, clean run. Well, kinda. This shit is never clean. However, perfect Dark Gaia was a whole different can of worms, making the rat poison in my kitchen look like it would satiate my hunger. The field of view on this fight is horrible. Anytime you try to run from Dark Gaia's direct attack, you can't see if you'll hit an obstacle in the way. The meatballs weren't too hard to avoid in the long run, but the eye laser felt borderline impossible, so I was going to have to take out the shield before that attack can happen. Fuck. Which doesn't leave us a lot of time to work with. Thankfully, damageless is now the only rule in place, so we don't have to worry about anything else holding us back. Heading back to the approach section for the I don't even know how manyth time anymore, I actually found it reasonable to pick up the rings. Sure, we were likely to get damaged so the HP wouldn't matter, but at least we could pick up an extra life if we needed to run it back, which I can assure you, we did many times. The whole strategy boiled down to just choosing the right snake at the right time, which seemed random every single time, but eventually, it worked. And you have no idea how happy I was to see Dark Gaia absolutely grip Colossus. We just had to survive the QTEs, and after giving myself arthritis mashing X 60 times, it was all over. Thank you for watching this far. This video took a really long time to make, so any and all support is greatly appreciated. Leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Do all the things. I stream these challenges on Twitch as well as other buffoonery over there, so you should come by and hang out too. Big shout out to hweilla and Makon for the thumbnail as usual, and a huge round of applause to Joshua Salkeld, as without him, this challenge would never have been possible. So, could you beat Sonic Unleashed without stat upgrades, without shoe upgrades, and without taking damage? Sure you can. And if you feel like partaking in the video game equivalent of huffing paint while suffering from a stab wound, then I can't recommend it more.
Can men get pregnant?
Oh, I am.
You're pregnant? You are?
Yeah. How about a congratulations? Instead of laughing at me, you could say like congrats or something.
Congratulations. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
How far along are you?
2 weeks.
How do you know you're pregnant after 2 weeks?
My stomach's been growling more than usual.